I'm so sorry. Ji Yanran held Chu Lily's arm and apologized. Forget it. I now understand that girls would give up anything for their men. Chu Lily looks to Han Sen and asked, Genius, would you come with us? Sure. But can't you call me by my name? Bite me. Han Sen decided to be silent and followed the girls. Although the military school would teach hyper-geno arts, there were nothing advanced. However, the military school students had certain benefits when it came to purchasing hyper-geno arts. Freshmen were allowed to buy a C-class hyper-geno art, sophomores were eligible to buy a B-class hyper-geno art and 2 C-class ones. Junior could buy 2 B-class and 4 C-class ones. Seniors could buy 1 A-class and 5 B-class. Unless they were in some special majors, they had to graduate and serve in the Army after 4 years. After graduation, it would depend on their achievements in the Army whether they could buy more advanced hyper-geno arts. Different from the St. Hall, the hyper-geno art sold in military schools came with only 1 bottle of Geno solution, and the D-class arts and under did not require any Geno solution. Both Ji Yanran and Chu Lily were juniors, and according to the rules they could purchase to 2 B-class and 4 C-class ones. Han Sen could also purchase 1 C-class at this point. However, he was not interested in the less advanced hyper-geno arts after seeing Holy Angel and Spartacle. Qin Xian still owes Dollar an S-class license. How can I try to retrieve it? Han Sen kept thinking about it, but had no good solutions. Qin Xian asked Dollar to get it in the steel armor shelter. However, it would be so dangerous with the strong guys and Son of Heaven in the shelter who hated Dollar's guts. The 3 of them came to the school's hyper-geno art store, and there was no shop assistant but all vending machines. The tutorials were up for download after payment, and the Geno solutions would pop from the vending machines. Ji Yanran, what do you think I should buy? Chu Lily could not decide. Genius, give me some advice, she then said to Han Sen. Maybe you could try the B-class momentum and windbreak. A strange voice next to them sounded. The 3 students looked to the direction of the voice and saw a well-dressed, mild-tempered middle-aged guy. He seemed to be at most 50 years old. How do you know that those 2 suit me? Chu Lily looked to the middle-aged guy in surprise. He smiled and replied, the hyper-geno art that you are practicing now should be Jetaforce. Chu Lily was even more shocked. You can even tell this? Are you a professor at the martial arts department? The guy did not reply and continued, Jetaforce focuses a lot on the speed, and you have made a lot of progress so that momentum and windbreak will bring you a step further. Really? Chu Lily was overjoyed but still could not believe him completely. I believe your linear acceleration should have reached 13 in fitness index and your muscle strength 12.5, so you're the perfect candidate for those 2. Ah. Chu stared at the middle-aged guy, unable to believe that he could even tell this. Her linear acceleration was 12.98 and her muscle strength was 12.51, almost exactly the same as what he said. At this point, Chu Lily had believed that middle-aged was a professor in martial arts department. She gladly thanked him and said, I will buy momentum and windbreak then. Chu Lily swiped her card and purchased those 2. Han Sen and Ji Yanran regarded the middle-aged guy in surprise. He must not be an ordinary professor with such keen observation. Do you need my help? The guy asked Han Sen and Ji Yanran. You should really use the professor's help. Chu Lily checked out the details of her newly purchased martial arts and felt they did suit her very well. I don't have any quota left. How about you? Ji Yanran said to Han Sen. All I have is a C-class quota and it will not be really useful to me, so I'll pass, said Han Sen. That's not right. Although advanced hyper-geno arts are powerful, the foundation is also very important. Even C-class arts could lay a great foundation for many hyper-geno arts. If you practice it well, it would even be helpful when you become an evolver or surpasser. The middle-aged men looked at Han Sen and continued, I will recommend you to practice a C-class and you will find out how helpful it is. That makes a lot of sense. Genius, you should try it, suggested Chu Lily. Han Sen shook his head. No, thank you. Han Sen had just bought the 3-blade harpoon and mailed some money to his family. Now all that was left in his account was $200,000. Even if it was cheaper in a military school, the C-class martial art would still cost $500,000, so he did not really have the money. The professor meant well, and you need it anyway, so let's just purchase it, Ji Yanran also said. Be honest, All I have is $200,000 at this point. I cannot afford that, Han Sen had to say. That's fine. I have it. Ji Yanran smiled and transferred $500,000 to him. Since my girlfriend is rich, I'll get it then. Han Sen did not refuse and turned to the middle-aged man. Professor, what's the C-class hyper-geno art that you recommend? After going back to his dorm, Han Sen checked out the details of E-Blast that he just purchased, playing with a bottle of purple Geno solution in his other hand. This is neat for a C-class martial art. Han Sen was surprised. He had little hope for a C-class martial art, but this one was even more complicated than Spartacle. Maybe it's a C-class because it is very hard to practice, and the result is not great. Since it was in the military school and Han Sen had purchased the martial arts from the vending machine, he did not suspect there to be any issue. Most importantly, after he had checked out E-Blast, he was immediately attracted by the content. It was exactly something he would have wanted. But after checking it out, Han Sen did not immediately start a practice E-Blast. Nor did he use the Geno solution. He locked them all in his locker. Although E-Blast did not seem to have any problems, Han Sen felt that the middle-aged man acted weirdly. As observant as Han Sen, he could even tell that the middle-aged man came for him, and helping Chu Lily pick her hyper-geno arts was merely a cover. Therefore, Han Sen did not immediately start to learn E-Blast. Han Sen was not wrong. The middle-aged man was in fact by Ishan from the St. Hall, and the E-Blast bought by Han Sen was the Yin Yang Blast invented by Bai. Bai Ishan believed that Han Sen was the perfect candidate to practice Yin Yang Blast. He had tried the official way and did not get Han Sen's consent. In a few days, the St. Hall would pass the resolution to ban Yin Yang Blast. At that time, even Bai Ishan himself could not teach Yin Yang Blast to anyone else. Using a banned hyper-geno art was a severe crime in the Alliance, and the punishments included death sentence. So, Bai Yishans had to make Han Sen learn E-Blast in these few days. Those who had practiced the hyper-geno art before it was banned would be exempt from the law. Originally, Bai Ishan did not want to use this method. However, he had no time to prove himself in the St. Hall and had to make Han Sen learn. Fortunately, the president of Blackhawk knew Bai Ishan very well and was himself a scholar addicted to martial arts. After reviewing Yin Yang Blast, he did not have the heart to let it be buried either. After some hesitation, he decided to help Bai Ishan. Neither of them had thought that Han Sen would be able to tell and decided not to practice it. In the next 2 days, Bai Ishan was observing Han Sen through the on-campus cameras. His face darkened, because obviously Han Sen did not use the Geno solution or practice Yin Yang Blast. Otherwise, Han Sen's features would have certain change. As the inventor of Yin Yang Blast, Bai Yishans knew that very well. What's wrong? Why haven't he practiced Yin Yang Blast? Bai Ishan became nervous. He had applied for the eligibility to practice Yin Yang Blast on behalf of Han Sen as a volunteer. As soon as the St. Hall banned Yin Yang Blast, they would collect the copy of Yin Yang Blast from Han Sen and ask him to sign a non-disclosure agreement. If at that point, Han Sen still had not used the Geno solution, then the solution would be collected as well. So after that, even if he remembered the tutorial of Yin Yang Blast, without the special solution, he would not be able to succeed. When Bai Ishan was feeling nervous about it, he saw Han Sen walking towards the teleport station, wanting to enter God's sanctuary. Bai Ishan panicked. The resolution would be passed in the St. Hall in 2 days. If Han Sen went to God's sanctuary, he would lose his last opportunity to practice Yin Yang Blast. Bai Ishan had to go stop Han Sen. Han Sr., Bai Ishan stopped Han Sen before he went in the teleport station. You are? Han Sen recognized Bai Ishan, but did not know what his name was. My last name is Bai, and we've met the other at the martial arts store. I recommended you to buy E-Blast. Why didn't you start practicing? Bai Ishan didn't even think that much at this point. With this question, Han Sen was even more certain that Bai Ishan had some agenda. Professor Bai, I'm sorry I don't really have time. I'll practice it later, said Han Sen casually. No, you have to start practicing within 2 days. Bai Ishan said hurriedly. And why is that? Asked the Han Sen, staring at Bai Ishan. Bai Ishan knew that it was out of the question to cheat him into practicing Yin Yang Blast. He hesitated and said, Han Sen, let's go somewhere we can talk, and I could explain everything. All right.
Han Sen nodded.
He also wanted to find out what was going on. Baishan showed Han Sen into a private conference room and told him everything. I'm sorry, Han Senator, I had to do that. You're the most suitable candidate among everyone I've seen, and you refused my offer to come to the St. Hall. I just did not want to see Yin Yang Blast banned. Baishan said apologetically. Hearing Baishan, Han Sen had 1,000 thoughts in a sudden. This is a surpasser and a maester at the St. Hall. He had been studying martial arts for years and is a walking treasure. God won't even forgive me if I don't blackmail him. Han Sen have checked Baishan's ID and searched him on the Skynet. A celebrity like him had millions of photos online. Han Sen smiled and threw a gaze at Baishan. He thought, don't blame me. You're the one who had the wrong idea first. Han Sen, I hope that you could start a practicing Young Blast right now. Baishan said quickly. Professor, I want to ask you something. Why didn't you go find an evolver or surpass her to practice your invention? Asked Han Sen. I've thought about it, but Yin Yang Blast was based on ruler, and ruler has a requirements for those who practice it, which is the age of them should not be over 20. Although I had made a lot of improvements, the limit is still there. For those over 20, they would make very slow progress in practicing Yin Yang Blast. They could spend 10 years and make less progress than a young person in a few months. Baishan sighed. So I'm the most suitable candidate to practice Yin Yang Blast under 20? That's right. Otherwise, I wouldn't go to the extreme and try to lie to you. Baishan nodded. So I'm your only candidate now? Asked Han Sen. Yes, it will be too late for me to go find someone else. I really hope that you can help me too. Han Sen cut in before he could finish. So what can you offer me? What? Baishan paused. I mean compensation. Since Yin Yang Blast is about to be banned, it means it's dangerous. And for me to take such a risk for you, I need to be compensated. Don't you agree?
Han Sen smiled.
Baishan hesitated. He had never seen the young man like this. He never had to ask for a favor, and people always came to him and back to learn the new martial arts he invented. Okay, if it is necessary, I could pay you. How much money do you want? Baishan would do anything to keep Yin Yang Blast relevant. 100 S-Class St. Hall licenses, said Han Sen. Bai widened his eyes, as if Han Sen was a lunatic. He had never seen a young man so daring. After a long while, Baishan looked at Han Sen and asked, Han Sen, do you understand what 100 S-Class St. Hall licenses mean? You are the one who invented the S-Class Hyper-Geno Arts, so what does it matter? If you think it's too many, 99 will do as well, said Han Sen. Baishan smiled reluctantly. My research only accounts for a small part of them, and even if I teach you everything that I've invented, it's far less than 100. In addition, without the Geno solutions, you need to take tremendous risks to practice the Hyper-Geno Arts. So teach me everything you invented, and then give me several bottles of Geno solutions for each, said Han Sen. Baishan looked at Han Sen and said, I have signed a non-disclosure agreement with the St. Hall, so there is no way I could teach you all that. Even if I teach you, you will also end up in jail when someone finds out about it. Also, I have no control over the Geno solutions. Without justified causes, I cannot even apply for one extra bottle. Since you're not sincere about this, then forget about it. I'm sure you can easily find someone else to practice Yin Yang Blast. I don't think there's much I can do to help. Han Sen got up and was ready to go. He had reviewed Yin Yang Blast and understood that there was no harm in practicing it. The risk was mainly in its usage. Wait, I could pay you a lot of money, said Baishan. Professor, I am not so poor that I would risk my life for money, said Han Sen softly. There is no risk in practicing Yin Yang Blast. And based on your talent, you don't have to risk much using it. Baishan tried to explain. I'm sorry, Professor. I'm afraid I cannot help you, said Han Sen. Baishan had no idea whether or not he made the right decision to pick this guy. He said helplessly, the St. Hall gives me 2 S-Class licenses per year. I have used some and given some away. Now all I have left are 5. That's all I can offer. Think about it. Can I use these licenses to purchase the Hyper-Geno Arts beyond the unevolved level? Asked Han Sen. You could use them to purchase all kinds of martial arts and Hyper-Geno Arts in the S section of the St. Hall, but if your fitness level is below the requirement, they would help very little even if you purchase them. Well then, if you give me the 5 S-Class licenses, I will practice your yin-yang blast. Han Sen reached out a hand in front of Bai Yishan. Because many S-class hyper-geno arts had requirements for one's fitness level, only evolvers or surpassers could practice them. Some licenses were limited to certain levels, while the ones Bai Yishan offered were universal. Han Sen was satisfied with such compensation. He had reviewed yin-yang blast and knew that it was not dangerous to practice. Bai Yishan was very glad that he had the S-class licenses with him. Otherwise, this greedy devil might never agree to help him. Bai Yishan had never seen a young man like Han Senator. All other young men he met were respectful and never asked for anything. After signing the contract with Han Sen, Bai Yishan gave the 5 S-class St. Hall licenses to Han Senator. These universal S-class licenses would only be given to people on his level. An average professor would not even be able to have one. Giving all 5 licenses he had to Han Sen, Bai Yishan felt a bit upset. Fortunately, after receiving the licenses, Han Sen drank the Geno solution of yin-yang blast in front of Bai Yishan and finished the first practice, making Bai Yishan feel a little better. Although he is greedy, he did fulfill his promise. I hope that he could make yin-yang blast shine. Maybe one day yin-yang blast could be made public again. Bai Yishan tried to comfort himself. Bai Yishan asked Han Sen to practice yin-yang blast often and told him how to cooperate in the St. Hall when they came to collect yin-yang blast. Han Sen nodded and went directly to the teleport station after Bai Yishan had left. The creature he was feeding had evolved into a sacred blood creature. He was feeding a color shifter this time. It was a primitive creature like a chameleon. The reason he had chosen a color shifter was its beast soul. Its beast soul was a shape-shifting one. After using the beast soul, one would not only be able to gain better fitness, but could also get protective coloration. If one stood in the same spot for a while, then the protective coloration would allow one to be integrated into the surroundings, as if one was invisible. However, when using the beast soul of a primitive color shifter, the color shifting was slow and not really that effective. If he could get the beast soul of a sacred blood color shifter, then the effect would be much better. For Han Sen, who was good at assassination, there was no better ability than this. If he could hide next to his enemy, then he would be a huge threat to anyone. After all, he now had a sacred blood beast soul weapon 3-blade harpoon, the only disadvantage of which was its length. If Han Sen could approach his enemy, then the setback would be mitigated. My dear God, Jesus Christ, Buddha, please show your mercy. Han Sen was praying to all kinds of gods while killing the color shifter with his 3-blade harpoon. Sacred blood color shifter killed. Beast soul of sacred blood color shifter gained. Eat its meat to gain 0 to 10 sacred Geno points randomly. Maybe the gods had heard his prayer. Han Sen actually gained the beast soul of the color shifter. Hearing the voice in his mind, Han Sen jumped. Putting the meat in his pot on the stove, Han Sen started to feed a primitive cloud beast. He had fed one before, but failed to gain its beast soul. Han Sen was very interested in this beast soul as well, so he wanted to try again. After preparing everything, Han Sen could not wait to summon the beast soul of the color shifter and shapeshift. After some experimenting, Han Sen was overjoyed because the sacred blood beast soul of a shapeshifter was even better than he had thought. As long as he stood still, he would immediately become part of the surroundings. Even someone like himself could hardly tell. And the protective coloration would also extend to his armor and weapon. However, once he moved, the speed of color shifting would not be able to catch up with his movements, and a keen observer could always tell. Even so, Han Sen was very happy with the result. There was no doubt that this beast soul was fantastic for assassination and running for life equally. This sacred blood color shifter added 5 more sacred Geno points for Han Senator. Now, he had 50 sacred Geno points. Halfway down the road. Han Sen, it's almost the semi-annual assessment. I've never seen you on the training field of archery. Can you pass? Shi Zhikang muttered when Han Sen came back to the dormitory. Han Sen then realized he had been in the school for half a year, and the assessment was impending. If he failed the assessment, it would be a lot of trouble. I should do fine. Han Sen had confidence in himself. He had studied hard for the past few months, and the most important archery assessment was his strong suit, so he was not worried either. However, others might not agree with him, for example, his student advisor Situ Xiang. As one of the leaders in revitalizing the archery department in Blackhawk, Situ Seong had high hopes for the freshmen in the department. Han Sen was obviously a bad student in her eyes. Although his grades were good, they were not outstanding, and she could never see him in archery lessons. As a member of the archery department, instead of participating in archery contests, he kept competing in Warframe and black and white boxing contests. What was worse was that he even went to shoot a commercial. These behaviors told her that he did not commit himself to study. Situ Seong felt it was necessary that she have a talk with Han Senator as a specially recruited student in archery department. Han Sen's behavior was a big disappointment to her. However, Situ Seong did not go to Han Sen straight away. She planned to talk to him after the semi-annual assessment. After his grades were out, her words would make much more sense to him. Archery needed tons of practice. One day without practice meant you would fall behind. According to what Han Sen had done in the past few months, Situ Seong believed that his grades would definitely fall. After all, he rarely went to archery classes and did not join the archery society. In addition, he spent most of his time practicing driving warframes in heavy warframe society. How would it be possible for him to maintain his archery level? Even if he had good skills originally, he would not do as well after all this slacking. I would talk to him after he realized that. Situ Seong watched Han Sen entering the test field. She was ambitious about revitalizing the archery department in Blackhawk and did not expect to run into especially recruited students with no interest in archery. She was even thinking that if he failed this assessment, she should probably suggest to the school management to transfer him to another department. Since he was so into warframes, then they should transfer him to the warframe department. He was not contributing anything to archery department at all. Although the archery tournament in the military school league was not as popular as other competitions, it was still difficult to gain a good ranking. As the coach of the archery society, Situ Seong had to give a lot of thought to the lineup of her team. Although there were a few good seed players in the specially recruited freshmen, they needed more training and could not be immediately put to use. As one of the freshmen, Han Sen was naturally listed as a black sheep in Situ Seong's mind. The semi-annual assessment began. When it was the turn of the group that Han Sen was in, many students who had finished their assessment or were still waiting for it came to see how well Han Sen could do. The genius is great at warframes and black and white boxing. I wonder how well he could do with archery. He's in the archery department. That's what he does. Of course he's even better at archery. For sure he's the first place. The students' discussion was upsetting to Situ Seong. It seems that Han Sen is really popular. One of the supervisors, Lu Dong, smiled and commented. Situ Seong said with some contempt, being popular does not mean that he will do well in the assessment. I wonder if the students will worship him after looking at his grades. Lu Dong looked at Situ Seong in surprise. Normally speaking, a star student like Han Sen would be popular among the instructors. However, this student advisor did not seem to be a fan. Does he have bad grades in archery? Asked Lu Dong. Just average. I barely see him, replied Situ Seong. While the two were talking, it was Han Sen's turn to shoot at the fixed target. He made 10 shots instantaneously, all of which ended up on the bullseye. Lu Dong widened his eyes. Coach, you call this average? You're so humble. Lu Dong thought she was being humble. Skills like this would definitely get the student an S-level rating. Situ Seong also paused. Because Han Sen was more than accurate, he was really fast. The genius is so amazing. It was like he shot 10 arrows at the same time. For sure, he will have an S-level rating in the assessment. The semi-annual assessments in military schools divided grades into 8 levels: S, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. A student would get a rating in each subject. Ratings below D level would be considered fail, and all subjects below D needed to be retaken. If the overall rating was below D, then the student would most likely have to drop out. Han Sen's performance was directly rated by the AI as S. All the students would be rated by AI, which was faster and more accurate than manual rating. Coach, I'm jealous that you have a student like this in your department. Lu Dong was from a different department. It was just the fixed target. We should wait until he does the entire assessment. Situ Seong could not believe that without showing up at all, Han Sen could maintain his grades and even show improvements. No need to be humble, coach. We could all see Han Sen's level. Situ Xiang did not say a word and cast an odd look at Han Sen. After the fixed target test, it was the moving target test. When it was Han Sen's turn, the bow and arrow became a rifle gun in his hands. Wherever he wanted to hit, there was no missing. Again, he was rated S. In the combat simulation, Han Sen acted like a professional soldier. There was no miss, no error, and no accidental injury. With his high speed, he got an S without doubt. His grades did not bring Situ Xiang joy, because with his skills, he never thought of joining the school team or the archery society, which was unforgivable in her eyes. As a specially recruited student in our department, he never thought about contributing to his own major. I need to teach him a lesson. Situ Xiang, of course, wanted to use him. However, since Han Sen did not apply to join the school team, she did not want to ask him herself. In her heart, she had already treated Han Sen as one of the core players to participate in the tournament. But she had to make him suffer a little before that. In her room on campus, Situ Xiang watched the video of Han Sen's assessment repeatedly. In the end, she dialed the number on her comlink, and it went through. "Xiang, it's been a while since you came to visit me." A man's voice sounded in her comlink. After a long while, Situ Xiang turned her comlink off and had a smirk on her face. She had to ask for her dad's help this time to frighten Han Sen into joining her team. On the other hand, she hoped this could also improve his archery skills and make him perform better in the upcoming game. Situ Xiang had a lot of trust in her father. He used to be an archery coach in the military, and that was why she had been practicing archery since she was a little girl. Boy, pray hard. That's your punishment for not joining the team yourself. Situ Xiang thought of the nickname of her father and smiled. Before Situ Xiang's dad retired, he was the famous Nazi in the military. The soldiers trained by him would go limp when hearing his name. After Situ Qing retired, he came to Blackhawk and became a vice president, but there was not much to be done. When he just came to Blackhawk, the president asked him to train the archery students. However, within the few days, no student could get out of bed, since they were either injured or sick. The archery students were about to write a blood letter co-signed by 10,000 people, which scared the president. Situ Qing was then asked to do no more. Situ Xiang had repeatedly told Situ Qing to train Han Sen according to the highest standards. "I'll see how long you can last." Situ Xiang thought of the miserable look of Han Sen under her dad's training and secretly celebrated. After the semi-annual assessment, Han Sen was celebrating with his roommates, Ji Yanran and Chu Lily, in the cafeteria. "Han Sen, we are all human. How come there is such a difference? I did not spend time in the relationship or playing. All I did was training in the archery department, and all I had was an A. You're never in our department and was driving warframes and playing with your girlfriend all the time. How come you got an S?" "It's not fair," exclaimed Shi Kong. "Come on. You're in the heavy warframe society all the time as well," said Lu Ming. "Lu, whose side are you on?" Shi Kong stared at Lu Ming. "Not yours." Lu Ming laughed. After dinner, the group of friends went to sing karaoke and play games until late. Han Sen hinted Shi Kong to lead Chu Lily away so that he could accompany his girlfriend back alone. "Why are you following me?" At the gate of her dormitory building, Han Sen was ready to follow her upstairs. "I'll go warm your bed."
Han Sen grinned.
"I don't need that." She blushed and said fiercely, "Beauty, have you forgotten that you just gave me $500,000 a few days ago? As a professional, I will serve you with all I have, so warming your bed is a must." Han Sen blinked and said, "Go away. If anyone else saw us, I won't forgive you." Ji Yanran blushed and bit her lip. "So, if no one could see me, I could follow you upstairs?" asked Han Sen casually. "How's that possible? Go back." Ji Yanran curled her lips. Han Sen did not leave. He walked over to a corner where the camera could not cover and summoned the beast soul of the sacred blood color shifter. Suddenly, he became part of the surroundings. Ji Yanran widened her eyes and saw her boyfriend disappear in front of her. She was so shocked that she couldn't see anything standing next to him. She had to touch him to make sure that he was still there. What kind of beast soul is this? Ji Yanran was surprised. "Color shifter. Can I go up now?" asked Han Sen with a smile. "Stay farther. If someone noticed you, you'll be dead." She blushed and went upstairs. Han Sen followed her slowly. Fortunately, it was dark already and there was no one nearby. Although when Han Sen moved there were certain cracks, no one was there to discover them, so he came directly to her room. With Chu Lily being pulled away by his roommates, she would not be back in a while. Ji Yanran opened the door just a crack to see that there was no one out there before she let her boyfriend in. "Do you want something to eat? You were just drinking and did not eat much," Ji Yanran said, looking through the food she had. "You're enough. I don't want anything else." Sitting on the couch, Han Sen said with a smile. "Can you be serious for a minute?" Ji Yanran took some cake and some water to him. "I am being serious and professional, trying to make your $500,000 well spent," Han Sen said. Ji Yanran saw his look and laughed. Then she rolled her eyes and said, "Well, if you don't eat, I will." She then put a slice of cake in a plate and started to eat. Sitting next to her, Han Sen regarded his girlfriend. "What are you looking at?" Ji Yanran blushed under his gaze. "Look at you. You have cake on your cheek."
Han Sen reached over.
Ji Yanran thought he was going to wipe away the cake on her face and did not move, but his hand held her chin and he licked the cake away instead. Then he licked the cream on her lips and said, "Delicious." Ji Yanran's eyes lit up and suddenly hid his face with the entire piece of cake in her hand. While Han Sen was shocked, she held his shoulder and said, "You have cake on your cheek as well?" Han Sen was dazed. She used her little tongue to lick away a piece of cream on his face, blushing. Han Sen could no longer hold it back. He reached out to hold her waist and rubbed her face with his, tasting the cream and her soft skin at the same time. His hands also found their way to her plump butt. While the two were enjoying the sweetness, they suddenly heard the door being opened. "I knew there was something wrong. Genius, you are a genius in stealing a girl's heart as well." Chu Lily walked in with a smile. Ji Yanran jumped away from Han Sen's arms, stared at Chu Lily and could not say a thing. "Shi Jikong, I shouldn't have counted on you. How did you let her back so soon?" thought Han Senator. He had no way around it and had to excuse himself. There was no way that he could continue his endeavor this evening anyway. Watching him going away, Chu Lily had a complex look on her face. Han Sen didn't go far before his comlink rang. Han Sen thought it was Ji Yanran and answered, but instead he saw Huang Fu Pingqing in white lingerie in the holographic image. "Brother Han, do you still remember our agreement? Do you have time tomorrow?" asked Huang Fu Pingqing with a smile. "Yes. Where do you want to go?" Han Sen touched his nose and said. When he made the contract with Huang Fu Pingqing, he also promised her to go hunting with her once, and he had to honor his words. The next morning, Han Sen was waiting for Huang Fu Pingqing in front of the teleport station. He got a text from the Office of Academic Affairs when he just saw Huang Fu Pingqing. In the text, he was asked to attend a training by Situ Qing. "I'm so sorry. I have to go." Han Sen showed Huang Fu Pingqing the text. Huang Fu Pingqing took a look and frowned. "If this is the Situ Qing that I have heard of, I'm afraid you're in trouble." "What about him?" "A vice president of Blackhawk. He used to be an archery coach in the military and had a nickname Nazi." Huang Fu Pingqing told something about Situ Qing to Han Sen. 2 years ago, there was a training by him which ended in a couple of days because of the complaints from the students. I didn't realize that the school would still allow him to do this. Be careful and our agreement can wait." Huang Fu Pingqing left. Han Sen did some research on the online school community and got a better idea who Situ Qing was. Based on the text from the Office of Academic Affairs, Han Sen came to an indoor training facility. When he arrived, he felt that something was off. In the entire facility, he was the only trainee. The student advisor Situ Xiang and a nice-looking, well-dressed middle-aged man were waiting for him. "Han Sen, this is Coach Situ Qing. From today, he will be training you for a month. You need to study hard under his guidance." Situ Xiang patted Han Sen's shoulder and left. Situ Xiang smirked secretly. "Boy, I'll come back and see how miserable you are in a few days. By that time, you will beg me to take you with me." Han Sen shrugged and came over to Situ Qing. The coach smiled at Han Sen. "Han Sen, I've heard about you. You're very popular in our school. I heard that you were voted the most desirable date by girls. You have good grades and many talents. You flatter me, coach." When talking to Situ Qing, Han Sen maintained the standard stance of a soldier, which he learned during the military training. "I mean it. I see great potentials in you and believe that you are the hope of our archery department. I will do everything I can to teach you everything I know so that you can help revitalize the department. Situ Ching patted Han Sen on his shoulder. It seemed he meant everything he said. Thank you, coach. Han Sen stood up straight and said. Situ Ching smiled and reached his right hand in front of Han's senator. There was a piece of metal of 1 inch by 1 inch. It looked like Z-steel. Situ Ching's hand suddenly gained the color and texture of gold. It was nowhere near human's hand. Crack. With a light squeeze, Situ Ching's fingers flattened the Z-steel. This is a little gift for you. Situ Ching put the piece of Z-steel in Han Sen's hand with a smile. Han Sen understood very well that it was a warning. But it was indeed impressive. Han Sen could not achieve that so far. He had read about this kind of strength on the Skynet. It was a kind of martial arts that could only be practiced by evolvers. The concept was to change the structure of their body cells and turn them into metal. Even if Han Sen could get his hands on martial arts like this, his body could not take it. Thank you. Han Sen accepted the gift with a smile. All right, here begins our training. We will start with the horse riding stance. Ordinary people would think that archery relies on the strength of one's arms and fingers, which is wrong. Most strength needed in archery comes from the waist and belly. This morning we will practice your core strength with horse riding stance. Situ Ching instructed Han Sen to make the stance and sat down in the chair, watching him. Coach, a small request? Said Han Sen while making the stance. You can try, but normally I would not grant anything, and talking would only make it harder. If you fall before lunch, then you will have to do the same thing in the afternoon. Situ Ching narrowed his eyes and said, Coach, one of my hobbies is black and white boxing. During the training, I'm not allowed to go on the Skynet, and this is not something I can practice alone. After training, could you join me?
Han Sen continued.
Black and white boxing? No need to wait until the training's over. We can do it now. I heard that you were rather good at it and gave Street Germain a 0 on our behalf. That was very nice, but after all, it was a competition on the unevolved level. I will give you some guidance now to make sure that you can beat the Alliance Central Military Academy next time. Situ Ching was very interested in black and white boxing and no longer required Han Sen to make the horse riding stance. Han Sen walked over to Situ Ching with a smile. He had learned from Huang Fu Pingqing that although Situ Ching taught archery, his biggest hobby was black and white boxing. Come on, you attack first. Watch me and I'll teach you how to do defense the right way. Situ Ching curled his finger at Han Sen. Han Sen looked at the confident coach and had a strange smile on his face. When it came to real combat, he could not beat Situ Ching. However, when it came to black and white boxing, strength was not the only factor. Situ Ching thought highly of himself in black and white boxing due to his decades of practice. Han Sen's request pleased him very much. Although Situ Ching was the top among all evolvers and was about to become a surpasser, it did not necessarily mean that he was better at black and white boxing. Black and white boxing did not have much to do with strength or speed. What was important was the control of one's body, judgment, and state of mind. Because Han Sen had practiced Jade Skin, the control he had over his own body and strength was not worse than an evolver, and the other two factors had nothing to do with status. Han Sen had just started to practice Yin Yang Blast, and he was very much inspired by its theoretical knowledge. Bai Shan was right in that it was not dangerous to practice and also helpful to increase his fitness. The danger of Yin Yang Blast was in its usage. Using the Yin force and Yang force at the right moment was extremely challenging for the users. If a mistake was made, the users themselves would be hurt instead. The Yin force was a soft force, while the Yang force was domineering. They were two extremes in essence. Similar to black and white boxing, it was demanding for the user's judgment. You had to be able to tell what kind of strength your opponent was using to decide whether to use Yin Blast or Yang Blast. If the opponent's strength was greater than you needed to use the Yin force. If you used the Yang force, then it would be like hitting a stone with an egg. Because the Yang force would consume all one's strength, a strike normally meant either life or death. Of course, this was the most straightforward example. The usage of the forces could be very different. Combining the Yin force and the Yang force would allow one to cope with different situations, which was the hardest part of Yin Yang Blast. Therefore, A great part of Yin Blast was dealing with the judgment of all kinds of situations and the methods to hide the user's intentions. The usage of the Yin Force and the Yang Force needed lots of practice, so Han Sen was not able to use them at this point. However, he had already benefited a lot from the theories. And the theoretical knowledge went beyond the level of the unevolved and went all the way to the level of Evolver and Surpasser. As for the demigod level, Bai Yishan himself had not even reached that, so there was no relevant introduction. Even so, Han Sen was able to understand the theories from a high level. When he used this theoretical knowledge on Situ Qing, the effect was beyond his expectation. Situ Qing's expression gradually changed. Originally, he wanted to instruct Han Sen, while later on he started to treat him like a serious match. In the end, Situ Qing was extremely shocked. How did you manage to do that? Situ Qing stared at Han Senator. He was not able to win a single round in a dozen matches. Situ Qing suspected that the student might have cheating equipment on him. That was easy. The way you use your strength was outdated. For example, when you used the black fist, the muscle on your arm, Han Sen said something in the theories of the Yin Blast. Situ Qing nodded hard, looking like a primary school student listening to his teacher. Ahem.
I'm sorry.
I've said too much. I should go back to do the horse riding stance. Situ Qing stopped him and put Han Sen in his own chair. Pouring Han Sen a cup of tea, the coach put a smile on his face. Forget about that. Please continue. That doesn't seem to be right, Han Sen blinked and said. What's not right? I have watched your test videos. You are doing great. I will show you some tricks later, and you just need to practice them. Situ Qing suggested, let's do this. You can show me how to improve black and white boxing skills, and I can show you archery techniques. If you have anything that you don't understand, you could always ask me about it. Then I'll continue, asked Han Sen. Please, insisted Situ Qing. Han Sen grinned and continued to talk about black and white boxing, while Situ Qing took up the bow and arrow to show Han Sen some special archery techniques. Don't stop, Han Sen urged Situ Qing. He found that the coach had stopped demonstrating as he listened to Han Sen. Yes, yes, Situ Qing said, and continued to shoot the arrows. After 2 days, Situ Xiang felt it was about time to check on Han Senator. She would go see how miserable he was and to try to make him join the team proactively. Imagining the look on Han Sen's face, Situ Xiang couldn't help smiling and quickening her steps. The moment she stepped in the training facility, what she saw made her pause. Opposite to her imagination, the popular student was even sitting in her father's chair, drinking a cup of tea. Her dad, on the other hand, was shooting arrows next to Han Sen, smiling to the student from time to time. It was as if Situ Qing was the one under training and Han Sen was the coach. Situ Xiang was dumbstruck and thought there was something wrong with her eyes. Why? Situ Xiang could not even close her mouth. How come her dad, who was called the Nazi, was acting like this? What spell did Han Sen cast on him? She could not accept what she was seeing and thought she was in the dream. This must be a dream. My dad could not? Situ Xiang pinched her own cheek, trying to wake up. Ouch! The acute pain on her cheek confirmed that she was not in a dream. Covering her face, Situ Xiang had an odd look on her face. Dad, what did you do? Situ Xiang pulled Situ Qing into the lounge and closed the door. What happened to the Nazi coach? Ahem, that boy is really good at black and white boxing. Every time he beat me, he could tell what I did wrong. So? Situ Qing blushed a little, for he had completely forgotten about his mission due to his obsession of black and white boxing. Situ Xiang did not know what to say. Dad, you will have to train him well. You know the situation of the archery department, and we would be counting on him in this tournament. Situ Xiang said, upset. Relax. I've taught him everything. The boy has a good foundation, and he would do just fine in military academy tournament, replied Situ Qing. Situ Xiang felt that her plan had completely failed. She knew from the look of her dad that all he could think about right now was black and white boxing. Although Situ Xiang felt discouraged, she knew that her father had a great eye for talent. If he said Han Sen was okay, then it must be true. All right. Situ Xiang sat down. Although her plan to teach Han Sen a lesson did not work, she was now even more certain that Han Sen was a great archer. Situ Xiang decided that to step aside and asked her father to complete his training. After the training was done, she would ask him to join the school team. As a specially recruited student in the archery department, it would be his duty to represent the school in the tournament. Since the result was the same anyway, Situ Xiang was okay with that. And she was a bit impressed that this student could manage her father. Situ Qing was training Han Sen in the meantime. After Situ Qing understood Han Sen's conditions from sparring with him in black and white boxing, he decided that Han Sen no longer needed to do the basic exercises. All the student was lacking was some details and techniques, which could easily be learned. To be honest, Situ Qing did not like to train someone like Han Senator. He preferred to train a rookie because he enjoyed the sense of accomplishment of training a kitty into a lion. A trainee like Han Sen had taken away the satisfaction from him completely. However, Han Sen's understanding and skills of black and white boxing were a huge asset. Since Han Sen was the only trainee and the coach did not have any constraint, Han Sen was able to live like usual. Although Situ Xiang was aware of that, she did not try to make his life harder. After all, he would be her core player. Han Sen had learned a lot of useful techniques from Situ Qing and made a lot of progress. The 1-month training ended in 10 days and Situ Xiang recruited Han Sen into the school team after the training. Different from other tournaments, the archery tournament was relatively short and only started toward the end of the semester, so it would still be a while before the tournament. Huangfu Pingqing was somehow informed that Han Sen's training was over, and came to find him to accompany her in the hunting trip. Huangfu, won't you bring more people? In the steel armor shelter, Han Sen looked at Huangfu Pingqing in surprise. She had a lot of strong friends, but did not bring anyone. You're quite enough, said Huangfu Pingqing with a smile. She herself was quite strong as well. With Han Sen here, unless they ran into sacred blood creatures that were especially tough, they would never be in trouble. Where do you want to go? Asked Han Sen. You decide. I'll follow you. Huangfu smiled at him provocatively. Then let's go to the Devil Desert. I hope we could meet that black-feathered Beast King again. With the 3-blade harpoon, he was confident that he could kill the Beast King. Normally speaking, a sacred blood creature that was the king of a group would be weaker than the sacred blood creatures that were alone. Black-feathered Beast King was not that strong among all the sacred blood creatures Han Sen had seen. Its beast soul was sacred blood wings, which were quite useful. The two rode their mounts toward the Devil Desert and ran into a lot of primitive creatures on their way. Unfortunately, in 2 days, they had not even seen a mutant creature. When they came to the place where they ran into the group of black-feathered beasts, they did not see a single creature. They must have either moved away or been hunted down. Last time when I was here, I saw a sacred blood creature in the Sand Valley. I was not able to kill it at a time. Are you interested to have a look there? Huangfu Pingqing suggested with a smile. What kind of creature is that? Han Sen looked at her in surprise. She was leading a strong team last time, and the creature that they were not able to kill was definitely very strong. Looks like something inedible. It looks like a warframe made from a piece of rock, only smaller. It was about 6 feet tall, very tough, strong, and fast. Even a sacred blood weapon could only leave a shallow mark on it. Huangfu Pingqing added, apart from that, it also had a black hammer that should be a sacred blood gear. Last time on my team, one was killed and one was severely injured by the hammer. We should go check it out. Han Sen was very interested. As long as a sacred blood weapon worked, he had some chance to kill it. For a 6-foot-tall rockman, it would be easy to cut its neck. After he arrived at Sand Valley, Han Sen came to understand why with a strong team Huangfu Pingqing was still not able to kill the sacred blood creature. The reason the Sand Valley was called that was for the sand pits everywhere in the valley. Unless one had wings, one would die there for sure. And even mutant wings would be too slow when fighting a sacred blood creature. Hence, only those who had sacred blood wings could participate in hunting the creature. The sacred blood creature was more than 6 feet tall and made of stones with a metal shine. What was worse was that the hammer in its hand was as large as a barrel, with a handle more than 6 feet long. When it wielded its weapon, any opponents within a dozen feet would be either injured or killed. Huangfu Pingqing smiled at Han Sen. Brother Han, do you think you could kill this creature? Han Sen smiled back at her. Huangfu, I believe you did not bring me here just to let me look at it. I could lend you the sacred blood beast soul arrow, but if you gain its beast soul, I need to claim half of it, said Huangfu Pingqing. She had planned this out when she took him here. He had a sacred blood bow and she had a sacred blood arrow, so they could shoot at the sacred blood creature from outside the sand valley. If they could kill it, then it would be great. If not, the creature would be injured and provoked to come out of the valley, and then they could try to kill the creature together. Huangfu Pingqing did not fear that the creature might hurt herself since she had sacred blood wings anyway. You're asking too much, said Han Sen. Without my arrow, an ordinary arrow would not hurt it or provoke it. I think it's reasonable for me to climb half, said Huangfu Pingqing. She did not believe he was able to kill the creature without her arrow. I will do without the arrow. After I kill this creature, I will buy you dinner. Han Sen summoned a pair of wings and flew toward the sand valley. Looking at Han Sen flying with a pair of primitive wings, Huangfu Pingqing was shocked. Brother Han, you do not mean to use a primitive pair of wings to enter the valley? The wings were from a primitive black-feathered beast, so they were slow and ineffective. They were just enough to keep Han Sen from falling into the sand. Han Sen used to have a pair of mutant wings, which he sold to Huangfu Pingqing for the three-blade harpoon. He also had the purple-winged dragon beast soul, which was Dollar's signature, and he could not use that. Han Sen smiled and did not answer, flying into the sand valley. The valley was full of quicksand, and the creature was standing above the sand. For unknown reason, its heavy body did not sink. 300 feet into the sand valley, Han Sen was discovered by the creature, who immediately lifted its hammer and ran over like a tank. 100 feet from Han Sen, it jumped up and swung its hammer at him. Although Han Sen had put on the Phantom Ant armor, the impact from such heavy weapon would still kill him. Huangfu Pingqing saw that Han Sen was in danger. His wings were too slow to bring him away from the creature's blow. If he chose to land on the ground, he would not be able to run away from the hammer either, because he would be trapped in the shifting sand. The sacred blood creature had such strength that even someone who had maxed out on all Geno points would not be able to spar with it. Not to mention Han Sen's weapon, the harpoon, was extremely short. Huangfu Pingqing summoned her beast soul bow and arrow, wanting to shoot an arrow to help Han Sen and buy him some time. Before the arrow left the bow, Han Sen had already taken back his wings and fell to the sand. He stepped on the ground but was not trapped. Under his feet, the golden rock worm king the size of a car suddenly appeared. Although the rock worm king had not transformed, it did not fear the sand since it originally came from the desert. Leveraging this step, Han Sen used Sparticle to avoid the attack from the creature and approached it. The three-blade harpoon flashed on the neck of the sacred blood creature like a silver lightning bolt. The three-blade harpoon was sharp enough to cut sacred blood armor, and Han Sen's strength was even greater than someone having maxed out on all Geno points. With one strike, the creature's rock-hard neck was cut off, its head thrown into the air. The headless creature still managed to make several steps forward before the hammer fell from its hand into the sand. Then the creature gradually sank into the sand. Huangfu Pingqing was dumbstruck. She could not believe that the creature which her entire team did not manage to kill was easily beaten by Han Sen. At this point, she regretted selling the three-blade harpoon to Han Senator with the weapon. He was too formidable. How did this guy get so far? Was it really just because of Qin Xian? Huangfu Pingqing could not believe that was the only factor in Han Sen's success. Son of Heaven was equally, if not more resourceful than Qin, but Son of Heaven was not as strong as Han Senator. In addition, even with Qin Xian's help, Han Sen would not have gained the same resources Qin Xian did.